Good evening, I'm Ryan Bonazzo.
And I'm Catalina Gillies. Thunder Bay's newest library branch has been the target of widespread vandalism over the past month.
The damage at the Mary J. L. Black Library in Westfort ranges from damaged windows and trees to graffiti and even fires set just outside the library walls. Kurt Black reports.
Public libraries are supposed to be a relaxing place for locals to enjoy their favorite book. But recently, the Mary J. L. Black Library on Edward Street has instead been the scene of many acts of vandalism. Over the past month, 3 trees have been destroyed, windows have been shattered, and 2 small fires have been set close to the building. Public Library Director Tina Marinez says the staff and visitors to the library are both concerned and angered by the incidents.
People are very unhappy. This is a beautiful public building and space for people to gather. Staff are obviously quite upset because this is their home library. They want it to look great. They want it to be welcoming and inclusive for everybody to use. And when there's activity like this in the area, it makes it much less safe for people, or they feel less safe.
Marinez added that until those responsible for the vandalism are apprehended, extra security measures will be implemented at the library.
We've stepped up patrols in the area. We have a security guard here full-time doing screening for us, so anytime he or she is not busy, they do a patrol around the library. We have extra evening and weekend patrols that we've hired. We're installing some more video cameras. We do have some, but there are some areas that are blind spots, so we're going to cover those off.
Although library officials have some idea on who is perpetrating these acts, Marinez avoided commenting on any potential suspects until they are certain. Instead, she urges anyone in the community who may have witnessed any vandalism to come forward or to contact Crime Stoppers. Kurt Black, TBT News.
Thunder Bay Police have laid charges in connection with a home takeover on the city's south side. Officers were dispatched to a home on the 200 block of Leland Avenue last night for a disturbance call. Once on the scene, they discovered the resident was the victim of an ongoing home takeover. 2 men were arrested and charged with being in the home unlawfully, as well as possession of cocaine, Valium, and fentanyl for the purposes of trafficking. The 2 accused appeared in bail court this morning and have been remanded into custody.
The Fort William Gardens will be a part of the city's plans for the foreseeable future. Thunder Bay City Council approved a plan last night to keep the gardens operating for another 15 years, with more funding being added to next year's budget. Council also received cost estimates related to last week's vote to expand arena spectator limits. Corey Nordstrom has more.
Council has voted to adopt a long-term strategy for the Fort William Gardens. It calls for $3 million in upgrades over 4 years, which would extend the building's lifespan by over 15 years. $400,000 will also be added to next year's budget for recreational facilities, specifically to upgrade accessibility at the gardens. The funds at this point are not 100% cleared, however, and will still need to be approved when the city solidifies its budget. And that could depend on future decisions, such as a new police station or indoor turf facility.
Any talk about like ambitious kind of planning, that would require really steering the ship on multi-turf and on a number of these other facilities. Like 15 years is responsible. It's basically recycling the Fort William Gardens.
If the city does opt to replace the gardens short term, the costs would be much less significant.
If we decided tonight that we were going to go down the road for a replacement, all that money isn't required. Because part of that money is to enhance that facility to attract more events.
The city has an application out to the federal government that would cover the majority of the nearly $3 million project. If that funding comes through, the recently approved $400,000 will be diverted to other recreational facilities, such as aging arenas and pools. In other business, the increase to spectator capacity at the city's 5 satellite arenas could cost a pretty penny. Administration is estimating that the price of added screening for the rest of this year be from $75,000 to $223,000, and from January to March of next year could cost another $100,000 to $300,000. Those figures are based on a worst-case scenario in which the city hires external contracted security. Administration intends to engage with ICE user groups to add volunteers to the mix. However, training could take up to 8 weeks.
Say Rebecca Johnson wants to go and volunteer in an arena to get people to come through with the, with the vaccination. What kind of training do I have to do?
So I don't have a definitive answer for you tonight on exactly what that training program is going to look like, how many hours it's going to take. That's work that we still need to nail down, but I can tell you that the requirements are extensive.
Corey Nordstrom, TBT News.
Meanwhile, council has also decided that the time has come to expand the type of plastics collected through the municipal recycling program. Starting on May 1st of next year, plastics numbered 3 through 7 will be picked up at the curb. Council voted unanimously in favor of the recommendation to add the mixed plastics. The change was initially recommended back in 2014, with recycling a top-of-mind priority for citizens across many local surveys. City staff say the change will lengthen the lifespan of the city's landfill and help the environment overall.
By accepting these plastic containers numbers 3 through 7, what's your estimation of the total tonnage of garbage that will be deferred from the landfill?
Typically 3 to 5% is sort of your 3 to 7 mixed plastics. We collect close to 7,000 metric tons a year. So, just quick math, you're probably, I'd say 200 to 300 tons a year potentially. Again, that's going to depend on how well how well of a promotion education campaign that we do.
2,800 COVID-19 vaccines were administered last week across the Thunder Bay District Health Unit catchment area. That's about 700 less than the week before, when the district hit a 2-month high in vaccinations. More than 1,000 of the shots given out last week were first doses. According to the Ministry of Health, nearly 92% of those 12 and up in this district have now received at least 1 shot, and nearly 86% are fully vaccinated. Both of those totals are second best among Ontario's 34 health units. And there's good news regarding the daily COVID-19 case counts across northwestern Ontario. There are no new infections today coming from the Thunder Bay District Health Unit or the Northwestern Health Unit. The number of active cases in the Thunder Bay District has dropped to 2, while the active case count in the NWHU has fallen to 16.
Ontario has announced it will now start offering rapid COVID screening to schools in areas where the risk of COVID-19 transmission is high. The province's top doctor says this gives the province another tool to protect children from the virus, but critics worry the move comes too late and doesn't go far enough. Colin DeMello explains.
It has been 4 weeks since students in Ontario returned to the classroom, and now the Ford government says it is going to be deploying a rapid antigen testing program in Ontario schools to better detect the spread of the Delta variant. Across Ontario, 5 schools have been shut down due to COVID-19. More than 800 schools have at least 1 case of the virus. And now, as the Delta variant spreads, the province will deploy rapid tests to track the virus.
We're looking for any other new interventions we can put in play to minimize the disruption for parents and for teachers and workers, and to keep that school open, but to do so safely.
The province says rapid antigen testing will not be widespread. Instead, the tests will be reserved for select schools in neighborhoods where COVID-19 is at its highest.
A number that we've looked at is around 100 per 100,000. Now, that doesn't have to be widespread in, let's say, take Toronto, for example. Toronto's level of infection is well below 100 per 100,000, but there could be areas of Toronto that have that high a risk.
Within the schools, tests would only be given to unvaccinated, asymptomatic students who are not high-risk contacts and on a volunteer basis. If a student tests positive, they would have to get a second PCR test to confirm. The change in strategy came with criticism today that the province delayed the implementation of necessary measures.
With no concrete plan in place for rapid school testing from this government, parents took matters into their own hands. They acquired and they distributed rapid tests themselves. Why didn't the Premier do his job and have real testing in place in September.
And I will confirm that the Ontario Science Table, pediatric hospitals in this province, the testing strategy expert panel, and the chief medical officer file do not support rapid asymptomatic testing province-wide.
Politicians are also calling on the government to take the next step and make vaccinations mandatory for education workers. The government says 80% of education workers are currently vaccinated, lower than the provincial rate.
I personally am disappointed if it truly is 80%.
But when it comes to making vaccinations a requirement for employment, Dr. Kieran Moore says he has an order of risk.
My immediate priority was long-term care. My next priority is acute care, home care, ambulance services, independent health facilities, and then we'll be monitoring the education sector.
And today in the Ontario legislature, the NDP moved a motion to make vaccinations mandatory for those who work in education and healthcare. That motion was immediately shot down by a member of the Ford government. At Queen's Park, Colin DeMello, CTV News.
Local MPP Judith Monteith-Farrell is calling on the Ford government to address the opioid crisis in Thunder Bay and across the province. She says the government failed to mention the issue in yesterday's throne speech, despite all signs showing the epidemic is only getting worse.
Last year, 64 people died of an overdose in Thunder Bay, an increase from 38 deaths in 2019. This is a preventable tragedy. Mothers in Thunder Bay and across Canada are working to end this epidemic. They are called Moms Stop the Harm. They are putting pressure on governments across this country to do better so that more families don't have to experience the overdose of a loved one. Enough is enough. We need to act to end this crisis. The solutions are there, but this government and previous Liberal governments simply have not done what is necessary.
Kiiwetinoong MPP Saul Mamakwa used his time in question period to grill the Ford government over its decision not to make the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation a statutory holiday. Some other provinces, including Manitoba and Nova Scotia, have adopted September 30th as a stat day, while BC adopted the holiday for schools and the public sector. PC House Leader claimed the government was waiting for Mamakwa to bring forward his own proposal.
A chance to do more, to properly commemorate this day, and this government did nothing. Will this government do the right thing and make September 30 a public day of healing and reconciliation?
The member called me in advance of the day to suggest that there had not been unanimous support within First Nations community to recognize that as the day, but that it would be important that there be a day, and that the member was working on a bill which he would later work with me to present to this House. I remain committed to working with the member to make that happen, Mr. Speaker.
A Thunder Bay resident has cashed in with a $100,000 Encore winning ticket. Constantino Di Giuseppe matched 6 of 7 Encore numbers in the September 4th Lotto 649 draw. The 77-year-old retiree says he'd like to use the money to take a couple trips to Europe next year, if possible. The winning ticket was purchased at Terra's Express on Fort William Road. Congratulations, Constantino.
A number of gas stations across Thunder Bay have jacked up their price at the pumps to over $1.54 per liter. That marks a new record high for the city, smashing the previous record of $1.48 set back in 2008. A number of gas bars along Arthur Street raised their prices this morning. Up until today, most stations around the city had been selling regular unleaded at $1.46 a liter, but many of them are now a full 8 cents higher. Thunder Bay's gas prices are now among the highest in Ontario, as the provincial average is around $1.37, while the national average is around $1.38. Some of the local drivers we spoke to today expressed their disappointment with the hike in gas costs and hope this upward trend doesn't continue.
A lot of us don't understand it, and I suppose if we pay more attention to it, other than the fact it just irks you on a regular basis to see the prices jump up and down like that.
The prices now these days are pretty high, and everybody has to put on the table, and I think it's pretty high the way it is right now.
But it's pretty crazy how expensive things are getting. Normally I pay like $60 to fill my Jeep, and now it's like 80 or 90, so prices are definitely going up.
I'm thinking that it might actually go into like $2 per liter, and I'm just hoping that it doesn't come to that.
Stations along the North Shore are charging as much as $1.59 per liter, while the gas bars on the Fort William First Nation still have prices in the $1.29 range.
Yeah, so tough news at the pumps. Fortunately, Fiona, it was a nice sunshiny day out there.